Hi, and welcome to the History Hut Canadian edition. We're back for another semester, and we're doing world history last time around. This time it's Canadian history.
That's right.
And we'll just get right into it, because apparently there's a lot to cover, including, I guess Canadian history goes back before 1972 with that. There was that summit series between Canada and Russia. Apparently there's pre-hockey Canadian history, which is crazy. So was it inevitable?
True.
I mean, did Canada exist
it's not all
before?
about the Rocket Richard or the Paul Henderson.
It's mostly about that. We both know that. But there was a thing called Confederation.
Oh, forget about that. Do you know that I was in school here in Canada when that summit series was on, and our teachers gave us the morning off, and we all were forced to sit in the science lab and watch the games.
See, I'm telling you, history.
So, and that was my introduction to Canada.
Did you know at the time
it's
that
all
history?
about hockey.
Did you know at the time that history was taking place before your very eyes?
No, I didn't. I thought history was all in the past.
I guess
But
at that
now
time
I'm
it was the present.
Now I'm older and wiser. Yeah, we are talking about Canadian history today, and we'll be talking about it for months to come, because there's lots of interesting stuff to do.
Of course.
You can add in the hockey parts.
Yeah.
I'll look after the straight history parts.
Well, that makes sense. That seems fair.
Yeah.
So
it does.
back at the start of Canada, Confederation. Some might think of that as a start. But did
And
Canada
even
exist
then-
before 1867?
Well, of course it did, but we'd have to have a whole other set of History Hut Canadas that would be really, really old Canada history. Yeah, so we're actually just picking it up in the middle of the story with 1867. Because Canada, of course, existed before that, much to the horror of all my students this semester, who were hoping that really it just started in 1867 and there was nothing to know, that you had to know about it before that at all. So you could just kind of come in blank and it would be okay. So we're going to do in History Hut Canada, we're going to do our best to fill in the blanks from before the big summit game, but certainly from before 1867, just a little bit to get us going.
Okay, we'll have a go.
Yeah, I'll have a shot. I'm scared to start. There's so much to cover. I'm scared to start. I mean, historians, we tend not to agree on things. I think we've seen that with our world history stuff. And you've seen me often enough in a pub to know that I don't agree with anybody about
I'm not even a
anything.
historian, and we don't agree.
Yeah,
half the time.
that's true. So we're going to start for a couple of months anyway, looking at Canadian history. And just because of this is actually for the post-Confed history course, so that's why we're starting in 1867. But like all historians, we don't all agree on why we needed to have Confederation. And for a long time, Canadian history was written from the kind of perspective that, yes, it was inevitable. You know, it was just like, this was going to happen. If you looked at the politics and if you looked at Canada before 1867, this was obviously the way things were going. And that's not really the case at all. And there are a few things that you should probably look at, like the political deadlock in or the United Province of the Canada, as it was called then. So political deadlock, there are some economic issues as well. There's the question of Ontario expansionism, or internal imperialism, as we sometimes call it, to make it sound really, really snazzy. There's some American factors. There's a British factor as well, the need of the British to reduce their financial commitments to different parts of the empire. And they've also developed a new thing called the positive theory of empire, where they're like, they've planted all these little colonies all over the world, and now they want them to, they've watered them, and now they just want them to grow up and look after themselves. So you get that too. And then, of course, there's also the fear of a maritime union. There's this worry that the people in the maritime provinces are going to have their own little baby confederation, and central Canada will be locked out, and they're really, really quite intensely worried about that. So there's lots and lots of different reasons. And if you're a political historian, you probably focus on the political deadlock. If you're like me, an economic historian, you might look at the economics. It just depends what perspective you're looking from. And of course, if we're talking about politics and political deadlock in the United Province of the Canadas, this is where you need a little bit of background into what was going on before. Now, I'm not going to give you a huge amount today, but maybe another day you and I can force you to come down here and listen to some more pre-Confed stuff, as we call it. But even just in a nutshell, you have. Well, we have Canada, so you want to go all the way back to people coming across the Bering Straits.
Oh.
No, we talked about that in one of our the peopling of the Americas. So
I
you could
believe we
always
did.
go and look at that. If we were just to look at Canada, of course, you get the British conquest in the 1760s, 1759. It's all finalised in 1763. The French are out. The English are in as the colonial rulers. And they're left with 70,000 or so French Canadians who are Catholic in a state, run by a state that's Protestant and Anglo. And even that's not so much a problem until you get to the American Revolution. And at the end of the American Revolution, there's about 50,000 loyalists who come up into Canadian territory. And the Governor Haldimand, wants to kind of separate them, the new arrivals, from the old subjects, the French Canadian subjects, in case there's trouble. So buys up the Niagara Peninsula from the Ojibwe, from the Mississauga, and sets up little colonies there. And the people that come up don't want to live under the old seigneurial system of the French. And so eventually you get to 1791 when you get the Constitutional Act passed, and the whole territory that is Canada, we think of as Central Canada, is divided up into Upper Canada and Lower Canada. So Upper Canada would be where Ontario is today. Lower Canada would be where Quebec is. And that's fine. That lasts for a little while. And of course, you've still got the Atlantic provinces, and they have a huge number of loyalists go up there as well. So you have that. And then after the Napoleonic War, so after about 1815, you see another wave of immigrants coming into Upper Canada in particular. And there's lots of Scots amongst them. Lots of people just like us amongst them, including a guy who'd become a reformer, William Lyon Mackenzie. And they're not really happy about the way things are running, and for all sorts of reasons, it ends up by the 1830s, you've got the rebellions of Upper and Lower Canada. And so these two places that had been separated out and had each been given elected assemblies and had kind of, worked their or looked after themselves, they're forced by the British government to be pushed back together again, and you get the United Province of the Canadas. And for anybody that's ever taken any Canadian history in school, you'd probably be familiar with the Durham Report, where Lord Durham is sent over after the rebellions to try and work out, what's gone wrong. And he says, I came here and I found that famous thing. I found two nations warring in the bosom of one state. You don't hear that word in common usage much. I'm always wondering if it's one or two. So you get Durham saying, the only answer really is to bring these two together, and subsequently the British government think if we can just bring in more Anglos, we'll just be able to kind of assimilate the French population. So you can imagine that this doesn't go down well in what would be modern day Quebec. So the Constitution of Lower Canada is suspended. They kind of hand out all sorts of goodies to the Upper Canadian mob, and they come together as this united province. So from about 1840 until the eve of Confederation, nobody's really happy about this. The French Canadians have a higher population than the Anglos, but they get equal representation in the House. So that's not good either, right? And then, of course, as soon as the Anglo population starts to get even higher, then they're like, we want representation by population. So it just doesn't seem very fair at all. But by the time, for political historians, by the time you get to about 1860, there's not a lot being passed in the House. The government of this United Province of the Lower Canadas is really unstable. The French vote as a bloc, the Anglos vote as a bloc. Nothing's really working very well at all. And by this time, you've had the early development certainly, but development nonetheless, of two political parties, the Liberals and the Conservatives. So the Conservatives, run by that great politician John A. Macdonald from the hometown of Glasgow, and the Liberals, run by Alexander Mackenzie, also a Scot, so two Scotsmen. Oh yeah, well represented, I'm telling you. And one of the other people that's really involved in politics is George Brown, who's the owner of the Globe, which would be like now the Globe and Mail. And they finally decide, after all sorts of things going on, and there's too many to mention, they finally decide that this can't go on, that they're going to have to come together. So they come together in 1864 in a thing called the Great Coalition. And the Great Coalition, in the Great Coalition, they decide that they're going to have to make change. So really, Confederation comes, from this political perspective, it comes not because there hasn't been a political system before, not because Canada hasn't existed before, just because they need a new political arrangement, because this one just isn't working out anymore. It's just too kind of even. So political historians look at that, and both the parties, although they've been at loggerheads before, the Liberals are the really clean-cut part. Don't laugh. The Liberals are the really clean-cut party of the period. They're all kind of temperance people, teetotalers, don't drink, and the Conservatives are like, patronage mad, handing out positions right, left, and centre to people for money, and John A. Macdonald can take a good dram, so he's drunk quite a lot of the time. But they, because of the Great Coalition, they realize that they need a change, and they come up with an idea about what that change should be. And then their job is to try and get the Maritimes interested in joining with them, as because there's the whole area of British North America, really. But if you think about Canada in that period, you would realize that to the west of Ontario you had Rupert's Land, so it's all Hudson Bay Company land. So that's not really an issue at this point. It's just, the United Province of Canada, which will become Ontario and Quebec, and then they want to interest Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, and Newfoundland in the deal. So that's the first of the many. Of the many approaches. The second one's a simpler one. It's just about reciprocity. Try saying that quickly. Ooh. Oh yeah. A little free trade agreement reached with America in 1854 for free trade in natural products. And it had worked really well, but either side could end it by giving 1 year's notice. And of course, the business and commercial interests in central Canada were really keen that this continue on. And, we've seen NAFTA talks in our own days, and we're actually in that at the moment. So people had come to rely on it. America gives notice that the agreement will end in 1866, and there were worries that there'd be economic collapse. They're like, we do hardly any business east-west with Nova Scotia. Most of our business is either going all the way to Europe or else it's going to the States. So really worried that the whole industrial manufacturing sector would collapse. And looking back from now, it's hard to maintain. And you'll also notice that the time frame isn't really right, because they'd already started talking about Confederation in 1864 and notice is given in 1865. But there is really a sense from the correspondence of the time that they're really, really worried about this. What's going to happen if we lose this free trade deal? And they will continue, as we'll see over the many, many weeks to come. They'll continue to try and get new free trade deals as well. So that's two factors. The other one is this sense of people in Ontario saying, all the good land's gone, we have to expand, where will our sons farm? Oh, maybe they could farm out there in the west, so kind of internal imperialism. So casting covetous eyes towards Rupert's Land, and it will become Manitoba and the northwest. And so they're hoping that will be a good overflow for young fellas like yourselves, that you'll all be like, yes, I shall leave Toronto, I shall leave the centre of the world. And they also, the Conservative politicians, especially John A. Macdonald, of course, have this dream that they're going to be able to get an intercolonial railway that will go from one end of the country to the other, and it will link all the territories in between. But also, he thinks of this as an imperial line as well. This will be Canada's contribution to the empire, because you could put stuff on in London, bring it over by ship to Halifax, put it on a train, get it all the way to Vancouver, send it by sea to China, down through the ocean, up through the Suez Canal, into the Mediterranean and back to London. And why you'd want to send your stuff all the way around the world is beyond me, but maybe.
But a man can dream, can't he?
A man can dream, exactly, and so he has this real obsession, of just passion for the railway. And to do that, you actually would have had to have had that land out west. So
Right.
Naturally, they're thinking, and as soon as we get this out the way, we'll move into the west. We'll make some kind of deal with the Hudson Bay Company, and we'll get through that. And I hear the bells on Parliament Hill are tolling, so we'll stop there for a minute and we'll go back and look at the next factor.
Yeah. Now that we've got that out of the way, we'll move on to some more Confederation talk in part 2 of the History Hut Canada.